Welcome back to one more video in Akhil's Biology Pandora. Please make sure to subscribe for latest zoology and microbiology videos. At this session, we are going to be dealing with animal physiology, including various aspects of animal physiology like digestion, circulation, excretion, endocrinology, and neurology. In this video, we are going to be discussing about digestion, one of the important topics in animal physiology. The word digestion in biology means breakdown of complex or large food particles into simple ones such that even cell can take them, like breakdown of a chunk of meat into a simple amino acids. We can classify digestion broadly into two main types depending upon where it happens. Intracellular digestion, the digestion which happens inside the cell or a vacuole. And the second one is the extracellular digestion, the digestion which happens outside the cell in a cavity or a gut. Intracellular digestion is basically performed by unicellular organisms and some multicellular organisms. Like take the example of this amoeba. Amoeba, a unicellular protist, takes the food particles by the means of pseudopodia. The food particle is engulfed in a phagosome, which will eventually fuse with a lysosome to form phagolysosome, and all the undigested particles are excreted from the body by the means of exocytosis as the food is taken by the endocytosis. While on the other hand, the extracellular digestion is performed by majority multicellular organisms like the phylums Cnidaria, like jellyfishes, the ctenophores. In Cnidaria and ctenophora, the digestion happens in the coelenteron. Other animals like helminths, like incompletely gut-containing planarians, the complete gut-containing roundworms, annelids, arthropods, mollusks, and in the echinodermata where digestion takes place in the water vascular system. Other phylums like hemichordata and the chordata, the digestion is performed extracellularly in complex gut. Digestion is the characteristic feature of heterotrophs, the organisms which cannot synthesize their own food. And we also have to remember that this is a catabolic process, meaning the complex or large food molecules are broken down into the simple forms like the molecular level such that even the cell can take them by the process of diffusion. In this video on digestion, we are going to be discussing about digestion of carbohydrates, the abundant biomolecules on planet Earth. Out of all major biomolecules, carbohydrates are the abundant biomolecules found in majority of foods like fruits, rhizome, bread and broccoli, and you can go on. These are simply called as sugars and are classified depending upon the number of carbon atoms, like monosaccharides like glucose, fructose and galactose, disaccharides like lactose, maltose and sucrose, polysaccharides like starch, glycogen and cellulose. Cellulose is the most abundant polysaccharide on planet Earth. Starch is a storage polysaccharide in plants and glycogen in animals. Let us first see the organization of the carbohydrates in the foodstuffs we eat. Take the example of the daily bread we eat and also the potato, which contain the carbohydrate polysaccharide starch. Starch is the homopolysaccharide of glucose. Now remember, homopolysaccharide are those polysaccharides which are made up of only one kind of monosaccharide. Like glycogen is a storage homopolysaccharide of glucose in animals, and cellulose is the structural homopolysaccharide of glucose in plant cell walls. Starch contains two basic components, amylose and amylopectin. Amylose is the unbranched helical form of starch where glucose units are joined together by alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage. Where amylopectin is the branched form of starch where the glucose units on main chain are joined together by the alpha 1,4 and alpha 1,6 on the branched form. Coming to the other carbohydrate sources, like majority of the fruits like apple, orange, the sugarcane, the grapes, which contain the disaccharides like sucrose, which is made up of glucose and fructose, the maltose, which is made up of glucose and glucose, and the milk sugar lactose, which is made up of glucose and the galactose. Let's understand the process of carbohydrate digestion in the mouth in its biochemical perspective. Taking the example of this bread, which contains the polysaccharide, the starch. Starch is bulkily consumed as a staple food, whether in the form of bread or in the form of potato starch. On consuming in the mouth, the starch or any other food particle is mechanically broken down by the process called mastication. The starch or any other glycogen polysaccharide is subjected to the saliva secreted by the three pairs of salivary glands, the parotid, the submaxillary and sublingual. Saliva is basically composed of water, electrolytes and mainly the salivary amylase, which works on 6.8 pH activated by chloride ions, which breaks the starch into the maltose disaccharide, the dextrins and some of the maltotrioses. Malto and maltotriose contain alpha 1, 4 bonds and alpha 1, 6 bonds in alpha dextrin. Sugars undergoing preliminary digestion steps in the mouth. The food moves through the esophagus by the process called peristalsis into the muscular churning bag called stomach. The food from the esophagus enters into the stomach by the opening of gastroesophageal sphincter. Though having the acidic environment provided by HCl, we have to remember that no carbohydrate digestion happens in the stomach because of not having any carbohydrate digesting enzymes. So the food from the stomach through the pyloric sphincter enters into the duodenum. Now let us see the process of carbohydrate digestion in the intestine. Let's see how the leftover starch in the mouth is digested here. The food from the stomach enters into the first part of the small intestine, which is the U-shaped duodenum, on which the heterocrine pancreas opens. The bile and the pancreatic juice are released into the duodenum for the process of carbohydrate digestion. As you see, the carbohydrates which were left undigested in the stomach are now will be serially digested by the pancreatic juice. The leftover carbohydrate particles like amylose and the amylopectin in the presence of pancreatic juice, which contain pancreatic amylase, which breaks the alpha 1, 4 bonds, and alpha glucosidase, which breaks alpha 1, 6 bonds, converts this into maltose, maltotriose and alpha dextrins. This all happens in the duodenum. After this, the alkaline broth from the duodenum enters into next part like jejunum and the ileum, the longest part, which contains the breast border enzymes like the maltase, the isomaltase, lactase and sucrase. And these are the components of the enterocytes, the breast border enzymes. Now in ileum, the disaccharides like maltose through the breast border maltase converts into 2 molecules of glucose. Similarly, the isomaltose through the breast border enzyme isomaltase converts into glucose. Similarly, the lactose, the milk sugar, through the lactase converts into glucose and the galactose. And last but not least, the sugars like disaccharide sucrose through sucrase converts into glucose and fructose. This all happens in the ileum. The major digestion of carbohydrates happens here. Let's look at the summary of the entire carbohydrate digestion that happened up to now. In the mouth, as we have seen, the complex polysaccharide like starch or glycogen, which contain the alpha 1, 6 and 4 bonds, are broken down into the simple forms like disaccharide maltose, the maltotriose, and some of the limit dextrins by the action of the salivary amylase. We have seen that the salivary amylase, which breaks the starch into these disaccharide forms, works on 6.8 pH in the presence of chloride ions. After preliminary digestion in the mouth, the food when enters into duodenum is acted upon by pancreatic amylase and glucosidase, which breaks down the leftover starch into some of the glucose, some of the maltose, isomaltose, sucrose and lactose, which are all converted into glucose by the breast border enzymes like maltase, sucrase, lactase and isomaltase, which forms the basic juice called succus entericus in the ileum. Now you might have an idea that no matter what type of complex carbohydrate you eat, eventually all is converted into simple form, glucose. Thank you all for watching the video. Please make sure to subscribe the channel Akil's Biology Pandora and tell me in the comment section what I should do next. Thank you for watching.